Many designers like to use creative methods for creative design. In the early 20th century, French fashion designer Madeleine Voynier made a doll to design and drape biases clothing, like this one, with a half-scale doll and a biases dress. German designer Alex Gress made full use of draping techniques and designed a lot of asymmetrical knitted garments, like this one, with knitted fabric and fit suits, as well as some other very creative fashion clothes. Draping directly with real fabrics can provide designers with enough inspiration and at the same time allow designers to pay attention to the proportion, fit, balance, and style effect of the garment, as if directly draped on the human body. During the draping process, the designer must understand the performance of fabric used, the feel, weight, texture, and surface properties of the fabric will directly affect the design effect. For those fabrics with special properties, it is best to use real fabrics directly. However, because these fabrics may be more expensive, it is best to let experienced people make it, because the muslin is clear, cheap, and can be reused. It can usually be used for draping. After the muslin samples is draped, it needs to be stitched and finally adjusted on the human body. After mastering the basic draping methods, you can integrate and make more creative designs. This course talks about some basic draping methods. On this base, you can combine some new skills to match the trend. In short, our goal is to make things understandable and simple, and to draw a basic method that we can use from infinity changes. Before we teach the draping, it's necessary to learn the equipment needed. A few basic tools are needed in draping for cutting, measuring, making marks, and drafting the design. So please keep them neatly together and handy. So normally the first equipment, scissors. Normally we need one scissors to cut fabric, another scissors to cut paper. Then pin is also very important for draping. Normally we use two kinds of pins. One just normal pins, another kind with a polo at the end of the pin. So normally as we drape, use the pin, and as we pin the fabric together, just with the normal pins. And then pencils. Pencils for drafting, and you'd better prepare the pencils with red and blue for identifying changes in pattern making. Or, a point metal instrument for punching holes in fabric or laser, such as apex. Notch, a punching tool for indicate the match edge of paper pattern. Tape measure, a narrow, firm woven, at least 150 centimeter tape with a smooth surface, marked in inches and centimeters on two sides, inches, centimeters. Rulers, you see there's a lot of rulers, Plastic and flexible ruler for drafting straight lines and measuring curves. You see it's easy to make curves, And hip curves ruler for drafting long and curved lines on skirts and pants. Square ruler is drafting right angles on paper. This one, French curve, a clear plastic and irregular curve for armholes and neckline. Okay, it's tracing wheel used to transfer outlines of pattern to muslin or fabric. Okay, so this one is a tracing paper used to transfer muslin pattern to fabric. Then it's a side table used to place style lines on the form. Except the equipment needed, we also need to learn about the dress form. A qualified dress form is very important for draping. There are different kinds of dress form on the market. The most commonly used form for both novice and the designer is the muslin padded dress form. This form usually has a rotatable stand and adjustable head. The form must be common to the shape of human body. A form does not exactly match the structure of human body, but with the dimensions of the body. It is simplified for easy work. Reference points on the form correspond to the same location on human body. It is essential to know the name of different parts of the form are known in the figure, same to the front and the back. It's the center front and center front neck, center back neck, and center front waist, center back waist. Bust point, we also call it apex. Center front bust level line, princess line, middle armhole front, middle armhole front, middle armhole back, shoulder tips, shoulder neck point, armhole ridge, plate screw means the middle of the arm plate. So the whole part is armhole. Horizontal balance line. It's normally means the bust level and hip level. The form has a fixed size and shape, which can be filled individual or manufactured. Dress forms are updated every year according to government standards and throughout changes. Therefore, newly purchased dress form should be tested and checked for alignment and proper balance of the shoulder and side seams. Thirdly, we need to know the elements of the fabrics. Before draping, consider the properties of fabrics to choose from. The suitability of the fabric will largely affect the final look of the garment. A good designer must not only be familiar with the composition, weaving, and style of the fabric, but also be good at analyzing its organizational structures and fabric characteristics, so that he can better grasp the looseness and balance of clothing. Choosing the right fabrics is important because it will determine the final shape, durability, and comfortable of the garment. Designers consider the following factors when choosing fabrics: color, texture, feel, weight, comfort, and price. There's some fabrics terms we should know. Let's see, muslin. So muslin is a plain woven fabric made from bleached or unbleached cotton yarns in varied weight. So now here I have two kinds of muslin. This one is a lightweight weave for softly draped garments. This one is a heavyweight weave, firmly woven fabric used to drape tailored garments, coats, and suits. Selvage, you could see there is two selvage at both sides. The length direction of the fabric. The length direction of the fabric narrow and hard tissue on both sides. On both sides, you can see. So cross grain, during weaving process, yarns cross the fabric from selvage to selvage and are easy to stretch. When draping, the grain usually lies parallel to the floor. Lengthwise grain. So yarns parallel with the selvage. It does not stretch as easily as the crosswise grain. The bias. To get true bias, fold the grain to the cross grain of the fabric at 45 degrees, like that, 45 degrees, to create a perfect fold line. As bias fabric stretch much better than either the length grain or cross grain fabrics. It is often used in design that requires draping contours over the body without using dots. Like this one uses its bias. And we could see this one, the color, this is a bias. So blocking. The draping process, checking whether the grains of the fabric are straight. If the fabric is not straight enough, it needs to be corrected. In order to correct the horizontal threads, cut the edge of the fabric and then proceed as shown in the figure. For example, like this one, okay, you could see as the edge of torn fabric is not parallel. So that means the grain is not straight. So we need to blocking. Okay, so you can see after blocking, the edge of the cross grain is parallel. So that means the grain is straight. Except the elements of the muslin fabric, firstly, we should understand the draping essentials. In fashion design, there are many ways of pattern making. The flat paper pattern method is developed on the basis of prototypes. Tailoring is carried out according to the measured dimensions of the individual, and draping is a very intuitive method. It does not rely on any prototype or measurements. Gray lines and bias. During the draping, it is necessary to clearly understand the grains of the fabric and its effect on the design and wearing. Studying the relationship of each design with the grain position of the pattern on the fabric. Each line has its own characteristics, which will affect the cutting and wearing effect. So we also know the methods for joining seams. There are several pinning methods in draping. Pins can not only be used to connect two seams, but also provide a guide for outlining the pattern shape with pencil chalk markers. So there is some like leopard seams. Normally we fold the seam alliance and lay it on the another ones with axis folds towards the center lines. The pin is fixed perpendicular to the seam or at an angle to the seam. The long seam are pinned right side out. This method always used when draping the contour of the bust pins are fixed parallel with the seam. Marking reference points. The reference points need to be marked during the draping process in order to copy the muslin sample onto the paper pattern. Mark clearly and accurately. Facings, there is separate facings. That kind of fasten for the armhole and the neckline are traced from front and back pattern, trim as is illustrated. All-in-one facings. Another way to do facings is the all-in-one fasten. Chosen facings from the front and back. The back shoulder dart should be closed beforehand. Side lines in the vest area. Match seams at the armhole or neckline. Trace the front and back facings. Buttonhole extension. Button closure requires the extension of the center lines of both the right and the left side of the garment. The width of an extension can be equal to either the diameter of the button or 1/2 the diameter plus 1/4 inch. The center of the button is stitched on the center line of the extension. The buttonhole starts at the center line and finishes on the opposite side of the extension.